the next thing that we need to move into is talking about our book that we did. I am curious, chat and or chats, who has read the Thrawn book, Greater Good? Because I was curious on some thoughts of who read it and what your guys' thoughts were with it.
Yes.
Mainly because this one, for me, and a lot of times I usually try to look at things of like, I think it's my fault, but this one I did not do well with. I think a lot of it was, I've talked before about my like lack of internal imagination.
I get what you mean.
Like my visualization of things.
Yeah.
I do so much better when we did Brotherhood, or when we did like, here's the Count Dooku story, or here's a Mace Windu story.
Sure.
Like I'm pulling from things that I kind of already
if I
have
tell you,
visions
Aaron,
for.
imagine an X-wing, you could probably do it.
Yeah, I pull out like Luke's X-wing,
But if I say, Aaron, imagine a starfighter you've never seen before. It has.
It's an Ewing.
It has 7 thrusters. It runs on this type of oil. That type of thing, and you're gonna be like. Okay, you probably have like a loose idea of some type of form, but it's hard to focus on it because you don't know what it is. You can't focus.
It doesn't really gel into my mind.
Yeah.
And I think this book here, there's Thrawn, which I love Thrawn, and I think he's great in the book for the most part. But he's also not super focused on really. Like he's in there, but
of all the Thrawn books, and this is the 5th one that we've read. I do feel like this is the one that was featured the least.
Yeah.
And that means that you have to feature a lot of other Chiss names.
Yep. Which I also I had a lot of trouble with a lot of Chiss names.
Me too.
Chiss families.
Yeah.
And Chiss ships and worlds and other aliens that aren't the other aliens I already know.
Sure.
So like I think that was all against me on this because I feel like I just had a lot of trouble like really getting focused on like what all was happening, keeping all the information straight.
Yeah.
Just in general. And maybe some of it's like there's a lot of Chiss politics in this one between like Chiss families. And
well, I mean, that is kind of the crux of the story, right? Is like showing the weakness that the Ascendancy doesn't realize is so close.
Yeah.
They think they're so unified, and we're showing, no, you're not. You can go into civil war pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we learn is a route being taken by a few to like look at a civil war among the Chiss. I mean, there's things I did like.
Just for me as well, I think I'm right there with you. In terms of my enjoyment of this one, I love Timothy Zahn, and while I still enjoyed this book, this is probably the one I've enjoyed the least. There were a couple times, especially in like the memories chapters, where I wasn't comprehending some of the stuff I was reading, and I really had to go back. I also, this last month has just been kind of like weird for me anyway, separate from trying to read the book, but it was harder because of it. And there were times where I found myself kind of almost wanting to skip ahead on some stuff, and I never feel that way with Star Wars books. I never want to skip ahead. And there was a couple times here where I was like, I feel so lost that I think I just want to skip to the part I like.
Sure, yeah.
Which is generally Thrawn stuff.
Sure, yeah. And like the Thrawn moments are in there, and like some of the combat aspects and stuff. Like he's always really good at combat. He's really good at figuring things out.
Sure.
I still kind of, and maybe we get into it. Maybe I don't know how the third book will wrap up with anything, but sometimes I want to see like a failure among Thrawn, and like. I don't feel like I ever see.
So does a lot of people.
I don't think I've ever see a failure.
Well, that's the frustration of some of our antagonists, right? It's like that guy won't stop winning.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Like there was an aspect where I'm like, oh man, what if you do get Thrawn to be wrong about something, and it's like something he has to come back from? But maybe
you got his political weakness.
Yeah, sure.
To show that he's not great.
But they lean into that. Dang. Trying to remember his name. I'm pretty sure it's Jack Nicholson. Chiss, not Thurfian, because he's the new patriarch now.
Yeah,
it's like one of his side command guys.
Right now.
Next is probably gonna remember what his name is, but he in the audiobook they make him sound like Jack Nicholson, and I always recognize
Samarco.
Yeah, him.
Samarco.
He recognizes Thrawn's really good at military stuff, but really bad at politics. And I really liked. I mean, one of his stories in this was looking at. Oh man, did I write it down? Her name. She was in it before. Thalia. Thalia, is that it?
I think it's Thalia. The
I feel like I'm missing a letter, but yeah, something like that. But like
Thalius.
something like that. Yeah, I think there's an S in there.
I think there's an S at the end.
Thalius. But that he's looking at her as being like a traitor and a spy, and there's like some weird like espionage kind of stuff that he's looking at or doing. But then we get to the end, and there's like here's a combat thing going on, and he's asked like, "Do you think Thrawn's trying to do this to help the myth?" And he's like, he doesn't think like that.
Yeah,
he's like, he is not a political. He just would not. If he says there's a danger and we need to work together for a military might, he means there's a danger and we need to work together for military might. And I really enjoyed that aspect of that character. Who he has his issues with Thrawn and what he thinks is going on, but he's also recognized what Thrawn's strengths and weaknesses are, and doesn't use like the politics side against him. He knows what he's doing, and I thought that was cool.
I agree, and I am trying to. One, I know that this trilogy is more focused on the Ascendancy itself than it is necessarily the first Thrawn trilogy, which was really kind of going back and giving us a prequel era look into what that guy was like.
Sure.
And then we had the roadmap of what he's like in Rebels, which is very different than what, at least I should say, feels very different than how he's presented in the last trilogy and this trilogy. And I'm trying to think why that is. And one of those reasons is Thrawn has this thing, it's especially apparent in his lack of understanding of politics, but I feel like he has this thing where he just kind of assumes that everybody has the same, not morals, but the same convictions that he does. I don't think he realizes that people differ in all of those things. And then eventually, when he's hunting the rebels, you can see that he understands that way more. He understands what Hera is about to do because he's studied how people think about that type of thing. And not just about art, but about how they feel about politics.
Sure. Politics, their culture.
Yeah. It's not like politics is weird because you can study what politics are all day long, but half of politics is how people feel about politics, not what politics are. You know, I don't think Thrawn is there yet, where he is closer to that in Rebels and then eventually Ahsoka and that type of thing, where he's going to fall more into the big bad of the Dave Filoni movie, I'm assuming is what we're going for.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Unless he knows of a greater evil and he's trying to stop that, right? Like that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, even in this here where like they're talking about there's something else causing this kind of stuff to happen. And we meet Jixtus in this, and there's like some, you know, he's kind of like that behind the curtain Palpatine kind of character that's like manipulating things and having other people like Hapleaf, who's like he's sending in there to like find things out. Like he really wants to know how they traverse the chaos and stuff, and like it's interesting. Kind of,
it's a good foil to Thrawn, who also is an information gatherer and analyzer.
Yeah. So like we don't really know what his story is or what happens to the Chiss Ascendancy or exactly why Thrawn ends up in our galaxy. Right? Like we get told what he says, but I don't know that all that is necessarily truthful. Or like, does he fail among this Ascendancy story that we have, and that's why he gets sent there instead of being a big member of the Chiss? I don't know exactly what happens.
And we also have to just point out that because these are different artists and authors, I should say, playing with the same character, like Dave Filoni's Thrawn's gonna be a little bit different than Zahn's, right? Yeah. Just in terms of like what they want that character to feel like and be in terms of the role of the story, the protagonist versus the antagonist. But I feel like as we go on into this second trilogy, I'm getting a lot more loose with the idea of it needing to feel like the same internal character, you know? Like I'm just kind of learning different things about a character, not like the character.
Sure.
I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
I think I get you.
Yeah.
But, I mean, some of the stuff in the story I thought was interesting. There was some stuff with Thrawn that I liked. The story they had with the Magus. It was like the matriarch of a world, and their world has, like, been destroyed, and her solution was, like, all my people are going to...
Like, I'm going to kill myself.
We're going to all kill ourselves.
Everyone kills themselves when I kill myself.
And then, like, we go into the Beyond, which is, like, kind of like their Force, I think.
It's their Force, yeah.
But then, like, we go into the Force, and then we will repair the planet for future people.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's kind of cool, I guess, like the idea of that.
Yeah.
But Thrawn is like, well, we should go and investigate and make sure. And he had a line that I really liked. I thought I wrote it down where, he asks what the planet name is. And he's like, we don't tell people what our planet name is. And he's like, well, we'll call it Sunrise. And she goes, oh, you're going to mock the loss of my planet by calling it something like happy and cheerful like that?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm holding on to hope. And I was like, I think it was interesting to have like Thrawn, who like is very like not emotional in a lot of the things he does.
He's logical.
Yeah, but he's like, I'm holding on to hope that your people still survive. And I it was just, I don't know. In Rebels, you don't necessarily get those kind of moments. But in this, I love the idea of how he is like, I mean, he is our protagonist. He is kind of like looking out for the Chiss and for others, for allies and stuff. But this was just a different moment for Thrawn than what I was expecting, I guess, for him to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that works really well, especially considering what we've seen of the Ahsoka Thrawn from the Ahsoka series, where he's much more interested and thinking about how the Dathomirian witches operate, and he seems to be doing something with that. I've always thought Thrawn is like, he's like the quintessential materialist, where he doesn't necessarily value the mythical or the spiritual or the supernatural because he can't measure it, because by definition it can't be measured, right?
Sure.
So he likes to measure the material, but he'll treat the supernatural as the natural. He's like, I can't measure it, but I'm still going to have it in my things I can do something about, you know?
Sure.
So I feel like having him say something like that is kind of the flip side of like, and when I need to, I'll use this stuff to my advantage, hardcore, with witches, you know?
With witches.
Yeah. Later.
Sure. It is interesting that, like, you know, he's seen the Bindu, he's seen witches, he's seen things, and it's
but
like,
you never feel like it's changing his worldview. He's just like, that's weird. Anyway, you know it's still stronger than that? Logic.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
tactics.
There was it the last book where it felt like he got surprised a little bit, but like was really interested, so he just wanted to dive in more. Whenever he met Skywalker, he's like, wait, your name is Skywalker? Interesting. Sure. You know, like it's like we have Skywalkers, but the Skywalkers are different, you know, and
the idea, or you know, there's a point in the book where he really thinks about the like, what is the Force? He doesn't know the answer to that question, but possibly the answer to that question are dead people. Like your body becomes the Force,
yeah,
and then what does that mean when you say the will of the Force? Are you talking about like the will of a thing that's an agent and tells us what to do, or is it a collective will of everything that came before?
Yeah.
Is there no difference between those two things? I don't think Thrawn can comprehend those questions necessarily, but they do factor into his thought process somehow.
And it's interesting the Force aspect, because the Skywalkers don't really seem to like know or understand exactly how that stuff kind of works. Right. Like in here, they talk too about like, man, I'm trying to remember. It's the caretaker is talking to like about Cherry. Yeah. Cheery.
Their Skywalker.
About
our third sight.
Well, they're talking about like when she's resting and being like, like give her more time because this is the time that this should be going. So give her like 15 more minutes. Yeah. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's like, it's just whenever I was a Skywalker, like having this time kind of helped me because this is like the deepest. It almost sounds like when you get REM sleep or something like that, where it's like you give yourself this much time, you get into a deeper slumber, and then you're easier to be woken up kind of later on. More effective. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. And it was Smarkov. Dang it, Jack Nicholson. It was that guy again. I hated these names. There's so many names.
The names are tough.
And sometimes like someone gets promoted or changes families and they change the name on me, and I'm like, dang it. But
Samacro,
yeah, Samacro. And he was so interested in like, why isn't this how we operate all the time? It's like, well, I don't know. No one really knows, and it's just easier, you know. Like, but it's like no one really understands how the Skywalkers do it. And then whenever talking to the Magus, talking about the Beyond, and she was comparing it to their Skywalker ability, but they didn't really understand that right away either. Sure. So like all of that kind of ties into the same Force, but people don't know exactly what it is or how it operates. And it's another one of those steps of like the Night Sisters or the web that we had in the Mace Windu book, like just all of these Force aspects, and also out here in the chaos and everything of the Chiss and all that, also has force, but it's different, not understood exactly the same, maybe not even understood entirely at all.
Well, they all have an understanding of it, but when they compare their understandings, they don't match, which I think is awesome for a mystical force.
Yeah. Well,
it's like, we think we can, I feel how much is here, but you can't actually measure it. I think is a fun way to jump into the fantasy of it. But that's why a character like Thrawn, who is all logic, I think is a real cool juxtaposition. You know?
Yeah.
So I appreciated those elements in this. Yeah. I do think, too, that we've had a little bit of a gap since the last book in this one, you know? So it did, like, especially at the beginning of this, I had to keep going, like, who's that one, though? With the names.
Sure.
I feel like how you probably feel when we watch Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, there's a lot of names.
Some of
them are similar.
Yeah.
Like,
and if I had a buddy that was sitting there going like, "You idiot to this," you know, I would probably pick it up quicker.
Sure.
Like when I do that for you.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Wait, is that this guy? No. That's you're confusing this guy and this guy.
It's not Sauron. Okay. It's Saruman. Come on.
Well, who's Sauron? Yeah. So maybe that's a little bit of it. I don't know, but I mean, some of the general overarching stories and stuff, like Thurfinn was a big part of this, and he's not for Thrawn. He's trying to work against Thrawn.
Not.
But by the end of it, like he has grown in status to like the highest rank of the myth. I think it was right.
He's the speaker. I think is what they call him.
He's
right?
He's a patriarch.
Patriarch.
I forget what the title was. It patriarch or was it speaker? Because he was syndic. Dang it, I got to look at this because I wrote it down.
You wrote it down?
I thought it was interesting that he became the patriarch of the myth, but he was something else beforehand. Mm-hmm. Syndic Prime. He was Syndic Prime.
Syndic Prime.
And then he became, I think, the
matriarch.
The matriarch or patriarch or whatever.
Patriarch would be
patriarch. Magus was the matriarch, I think, of the...
Yeah, Magus is the matriarch of her species.
The potatoes or something?
Mash them, put them in a stew.
I don't remember exactly what it was. Patatis? The patatis?
And, you know, Nexus is right. Like, hey, the physical book actually has all the different levels within the... Like, that was one of the things, like, the oldie you had. It's like, hey, when does this take place? Oh, there's a whole timeline on here.
Sure,
on the back.
Yeah.
So, I think that I might transition to... reading the physical books. At least in the winter.
If I had both, I would just do both.
Yeah.
Melanie's been doing some some stuff that she has this like speech thing that like will just read stuff from like books for her. Like it's like homework kind of stuff. So like if you had like a paper you had to like read and like write something about, it would highlight the word it's on and say it for you.
Cool.
But she has it sped up to like 2 times speed, and I'm like, I can't understand what they're saying. But if you were reading along, wow, your mind, like, have you ever done the bold words thing?
Yeah.
Where like the first half of the word or the first 4 letters are like boldened, and your brain just kind of like fills it in for you without having to like. That was the fastest I've ever read in my life. Was having.
Really.
Gonk, calm down.
What's happening?
Calm down, Gonk. I don't know what you're doing there. That's a weird noise, but.
I think it is updated.
I think if I had like the audio with the visual, but like just the book, it doesn't tend to help me as much. I don't think.
Okay.
And then the most of the audiobooks I think I do okay with. This one though, I did not.
Yeah.
And I feel like I did okay with the last Thrawn Ascendancey book.
Mm-hmm.
But we also tied into like the Anakin story from before in Thrawn and some other aspects. It was a lot of
There's
Thrawn.
like some milestones you can build around, whereas this one I felt like even more than the last Ascendancy book, you're kind of like, remember this stuff, guys. You know, you're an adult, you can do it.
Yeah,
you know, that type of thing. And I was like, crap, I'm not an adult. I couldn't do it. But no, I just, like I said, I've just been having an off month anyway. But I might switch to the physical copies and then do audio during the summer when I'm outside doing stuff.
Sure, yeah. I get you.
Right now I'm just cooped up inside because it's cold.
But like, there's a lot of work and a lot of interesting stuff in this book. So like, I want to take the blame on me, but maybe some of it's the book. I have no idea. I've only done so much of books. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But some of the story stuff I really like. I like Thurfian.
Yeah.
I like Thrawn and Arlani. Like those are definitely some of my favorites.
One of my favorites.
There was a newer character in this that it was the Gray Shrike.
Mm-hmm.
Lucinda. Lakinda, who isn't Lakinda anymore. There's a new name for them, I think.
She has a new name
because I think they got, or maybe they were thinking about. I don't know. I don't know if she accepted going to a new family or not.
I get you.
But their name might be different now.
Yeah.
But
she was the one that's like, oh, he really knows what he's doing. Like that learns every book.
Yeah, well,
she learned this time.
The battles and stuff they had, they compared. Like I didn't think anyone could do combat as well as Thrawn, but Lakinda does a really good job as well. And the end kind of battle of like the Chiss families that were like about to fight each other, but then they had to like work together against. Oh, that Chiss guy is needing help with other ships chasing after him.
Yeah,
like Thrawn and her both worked really well in that situation to get that kind of like fixed and at least not start any civil wars right now.
Sure, yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. But Thurfian, and then this is going to go into the next book, which I'll be excited to see what that is. But there were they said about closely guarded secrets in the Myth family. Which I wonder what that history and stuff that we don't know what that stuff is. But then they also mentioned the weapon.
They mentioned the weapon,
whatever that is too.
What was it called again? The
Starflash.
When I first read it, I was like, when I first heard it, I was like, Starfish.
Starflash. Starfish. Yeah, I think it's Starflash.
Sure.
Which I mean, once again, like I don't know where everything goes with the next book. If any of this at all ties into any other Thrawn. Like, the Ahsoka and what he's doing. I don't know. Like,
not sure.
If Jixtus pushes Thrawn out and Thrawn fails, thus that means he gets sent to the other galaxy. Is Jixtus and the Starflash a big threat that he's trying to make sure that he stops?
Sure.
I have no idea. I'm going to assume not because this, I think, was all done before any of that other stuff was done. Mm-hmm. Maybe Rebels, and that was it. But I'm always interested in, like, an overarching story that, like, well, we can tell you this story over here, and you don't need to know this.
Yeah.
But if you know this, here's some cool nods that you're going to get with this stuff.
Sure.
But,
yeah. The Starflash thing, like, immediately my mind goes to, like, Starkiller, because that literally flashes the power of a star, right, into the Hosnian system.
Yeah.
In The Force Awakens. There was the Sun Crusher, which would, like, fire a thing at a star and blow it up. And that was in the old EU.
Was that the one that was involved with Chewbacca?
No,
because that was from a weapon too, right?
That was from a moon falling.
Oh, it wasn't a weapon that caused.
It
the
might
moon
have
to
been
fall?
a weapon, but like something caused the moon to fall into a planet and kill a bunch of people.
Is the Star Crusher a weird golden drill-looking thing?
Yeah,
I have a memory of some kind of picture I've seen.
It's like a space pyramid, but small. Kind of, and I think Kip Duran was like
Kip Duran. He was a really good pilot. I've heard that name. I think, right?
He was a good pilot, but yeah, he's it's during like the Jedi Academy stuff,
or maybe he was bad at the Force, but he was good with animals.
That is Corran Horn.
Oh, Corran Horn. Okay,
Corran Horn.
There's like random names that I recognize from EU, but I haven't read them enough.
Corran Horn was bad at telekinesis, but good at mind tricks.
Okay.
So, like, he can't move the rock, but he can tell ants to move the rock.
Yeah, I've heard of that before and stuff.
And then there was Kip Duran. So he was like Luke Skywalker's first class of like 12 Jedi, and he was like the most powerful of them.
I remembered a story that was like this crazy piloting exercise through like asteroids, and like Han Solo and Chewbacca run through it and did like a really good job.
Yeah.
But I think like Kip or someone flew through it and did better than they did or something like that. I remember some kind of story revolving around that. And I was like, well, that's a neat story.
Yeah.
But I think he was also maybe either a really good pilot or force sensitive or something.
I think it was both.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
I remember them when they had Kip in the old EU. Luke had developed this technique to find out if you had the Force. He would talk about there's a very specific spot in your brain that if I try to invade it, a natural Force user will push back. So he goes to like Wedge, and he tries to do it, and there's nothing. He goes to Leia, who isn't very powerful at the time, and does it, and he gets a pushback. And then he goes to Kip, and he gets fucking thrown back.
Oh, really?
And it's like a power scaling type of thing.
That's cool, yeah. Okay. He's got a lot of Force.
But anyway, that's that book, not this book.
Sorry, that's different stories.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm trying to see what else I had of things that I really enjoyed and liked about it. I mean, honestly, most of the things we've mentioned are some of the things I really enjoyed. We still have the Nick Ardoon kind of like showing up here and there. There was that Jixtus was working with grisks.
The grisk, yeah.
Which we had them before,
Yes.
right? Was it the last Thrawn trilogy?
Yeah, those are kind of like
I do believe.
what we think are the new Vong for the new universe, pretty much. But yeah, the grisk are the unnamed terror of the Outer Rim, pretty much.
So there's that, which I assume between that and
but
the
like
Star Flash.
It's not that he's just connected to them. He is one, right?
Was he one?
He is a grisk. He's
Well,
part
dang,
of their
okay.
organization.
Okay.
And he's the manipulator of cultures or something, right? Like he can like pretty much he created the Civil War that they found or whatever.
Yeah, he was putting stuff towards like all this stuff happening. I mean, he sent in
the unknown regions, yes.
He sent in Hapleaf, and Hapleaf had like some kind of like psychic touch powers or something like that, right?
Uh-huh.
And like he was using him to get information and stuff too. So like he was
trying
gathering
to-
information and trying to push the Chiss
Really
into
kept
Civil
trying
War.
to touch Chiss heads a couple of times. I was like, why does this guy keep trying to touch heads?
Yeah. So we could see the Grisk come in to attack maybe in the next book. And maybe that's kind of where we go.
They
into
seem like
things.
they're at the very least going to be a protagonist or the protagonist for the Ascendancy.
Antagonist?
Antagonist.
Okay.
What I meant.
I was like, are we rooting on him?
I've been
Are we against the Chiss now?
I've been using the word protagonist for Thrawn so much that I'm confused.
Gotcha. I understand.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, overall, I think like the book was fine. I think more so it was probably my struggles that caused some issues. I kept trying to write down information, making sure I understood the Chiss families as much as I could.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other characters or planets and stuff that were all new. So sometimes like making sure I knew what planet or what people or what like just that would be all mixed up on a lot of things. But But yeah, I don't know. Did you have any other thoughts or anything that stood out in the book? That
Not necessarily. I mean, it's the middle chapter of a trilogy. Middle chapters are always the most messy because they have to, like I don't feel like this. I thought like the ending of this book was good, but the beginning of it, I kind of had like a rough time getting back into where the story placed me.
Sure.
I'm hoping that that's easier for the next time we jump into the Ascendancy Trilogy.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Are you just stopping talking there? Or are you saying something else?
Because-
Oh, okay. Like, did you want me to say something?
Yeah,
or
sure.
Are you saying that because when I'm talking about what to do for the next book, I recommended similar to Eric. Like I felt like getting into this after having a little gap on the first book, like took me a while to kind of catch back up.
Yeah.
I'd like to go into the third book now.
Yep.
So that I can continue the names and information that I have now that I've been trying to keep in my head.
Quite such a work to get into it.
Yeah.
You're already there.
Yeah, I'm already like these names are already fresher in my mind now versus like losing that and then coming back to it. So we're gonna go into Thrawn 3.
Thrawn Ascendancey.
I think it's called Lesser Evil.
Yeah, so we had Greater Good and then Lesser Evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Lesser Evil will be the next one for next month. So if you guys have been following along, make sure you check out that book.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, there was one moment I guess that I liked. It stood out. I don't know why it stood out. I guess it's just the idea that Thrawn is willing to listen to people.
Yeah.
But there was like another guy on the ship at one point when they were being attacked by these like gunboats. I think is what they called them or something like that. And some guy was like, "Hey, I have a message to send." He's like, "All right, well here, tell Thrawn." And he's like, "It's like, what is it?" And he was saying that like the formation they have and what it looked like they were doing. And he's like, yes. And it's like, well, so what? Someone else was like, arguing. He's like, no, but there could be meaning in this. And I like that Thrawn, like, he's willing to listen to whoever, but he just, rather than like, I don't know, attacking them or telling them it's bad or whatever, he's like, okay, what was your observations?
Yeah.
Let me think about that and use it. And I like, because like, people observing things and giving their information, like, what is that from? They're all in the military. They've all seen various, like, combat or maneuvers or whatever. So everyone sees things differently. But, like, what was it, the last book when they were like, Thrawn did this maneuver, and that's impossible. Yeah. And it's like, well, it's not impossible. You've just never seen it work before or whatever, you know? Like,
I agree. He has like, Thrawn, I think, collects and studies what the precedents of things are, but he never starts there. Like, he has an idea of, like, well, this is how things usually go. But in his head, he's always trying to start fresh and being like, no, it's not about how it goes. It's how it is. I'm going to figure that out first. and I might use precedent to kind of inform that, but he doesn't start there as a default, which I think is his greatest asset, and what annoys everybody else the most, because precedent tends to be the thing that we all, that everybody thinks that we should focus on, so that you don't have to do new stuff, So yeah, he's really good at that.
Nexus said, "Did you guys catch that the ring Thrawn wants to return? It's design.
Yes. So it's the same design that appears on his Star Destroyer, the Chimera.
Oh, the snake look and stuff. I remember them saying about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The intertwining snakes is the same design we see in Rebels and Ahsoka on the bottom of his Star Destroyer. Pretty cool.
Okay. Does it come from that? Because that was the ring from the one people. Dang, I can't remember what they were called. I don't think it was the Patatas, but it might have been whoever they worked with in the first book. Was it related to them, I think, but I can't remember what it was. I don't think it was the potatoes.
It was a potato ring.
The potatoes. Thrawn would have been a fan of the Egg of Columbus. What? What is the Egg of Columbus? But yeah, overall, I'm just more excited to see maybe how the whole trilogy wraps up. I think it's tough to, if you said trilogies, like looking at middle of the stories and just stopping there is not what it's meant to do. If you just stop at Empire Strikes Back or you just stop at Attack of the Clones, like there's no resolution because you're in the middle of this trilogy arc story. And so I will be, I'll be interested to see what my thoughts are in the third book.
Gotcha.
An egg of Columbus or Columbus's egg refers to seemingly impossible task that becomes easy once understood. Oh, Thank you, Gonk.
Thank you, Gonk. That was so helpful. Maybe that update really worked. I've been trying to get him to do that forever.
Wait, what? One of the longest canon books, Lesser Evil. Is it one of the longest canon books? Is that true?
Ooh.
I do not know.
Better get started now.
I'm gonna have to.